Hey, welcome back
Yeah, Jeff
to
and Mitch will do Blender.
yeah. Today we're celebrating slash anticipating the Krispy Kreme challenge coming up here at NCSU, and we're gonna make a Krispy Kreme donut. And our friend, everybody's friend, the Blender Guru, is gonna show us how to do it. For those of you who don't know, this is kind of one of those staple
Yeah.
videos for anyone learning Blender. There's a whole subreddit devoted to people's donuts that they made via this tutorial.
Yeah.
And this is the updated one for the newest release of Blender, which neither of us have re-gone through yet.
Yeah, this is our first time going through this as well.
So yeah, thanks for joining us, and we're gonna make a donut today.
Yeah, let's all make some donuts.
We are here with the VR lab at DH Hill, and we're gonna try to remember to keep plugging that throughout the.
Yes, we'll
throughout
also
the
be
program.
using drawing tablets
Mhm.
throughout that you can rent through University Tech Lending. So be sure to check that out. We got small little Wacom tablets like this that you can rent. And then we also have
I've got one of these jumbo Cintiq tablets over here. Wacom tablet. It's really big and luxurious and nice. So you can rent either of these out through our lending program. And yeah, let's see what Blender Guru has to say. Hopefully we can hear him all right. It's
Blender, then welcome. You're in the right place. G'day. If you are new to Blender, then welcome. You're in the right place. This is a complete beginner's tutorial series designed to show you how to use all the main features of Blender whilst learning how to create a delicious donut.
there he is. There's the donut.
that's what we're gonna make. Or well, we can.
I'm
change
just
it up
trying
a
to
little
find the
bit.
volume. We've got like 6 monitors open right now.
Yeah.
How do I volume up? Is there just a button here?
I think it's already all the way up already. Are you trying to do it for the computer?
Yeah, for the computer. Okay, that's already all the way up. We'll make it work. Get this nice and close to the microphone. Are you going to be able to hear this?
I can hear it.
Okay.
Can you hear it?
Yeah.
Donut and some coffee. Now, I know you are excited, you want to start clicking on things and learning things, but since this is part one of a series, I want to take just 60 seconds to explain what you will learn and what you won't learn. So, right now, this is you. You are...
Real quick, Colin asked in the chat, what flavor of donut are you making?
Ooh, that's what I was actually thinking about. You want to do different types of donuts, Jeff?
Yeah, we should.
What kind of donut you're feeling?
Kind of donut am I feeling? I want to make like a radioactive donut.
A radioactive donut?
Yeah,
Okay,
just,
okay.
like a bright green fluorescent chroma key donut.
I might try messing around with shading nodes and making a cartoon donut.
Ooh, yeah.
Like little different sprinkle shapes on there, like maybe some stars and stuff. We'll try
Yeah.
that.
All right. Yeah, we'll see. Cartoon flavor and radiation flavor.
Ooh, maybe a cosmic donut. Since I
A
got
cosmic donut. That's nice.
a little red dot, and you are entering into the wide world of 3D. And if you've done any research, you probably know there is a lot to learn, and it can be a little overwhelming, and you can feel like, I'm never going to learn it all, so why bother? Well, the good news is you don't need to know everything. If you're familiar with the 80-20 rule, there is really only 20% of the features inside 3D software that you use 80% of the time. And that is what this course is all about. It's teaching you those core concepts that you're going to use
Never got
all
to
the
the coffee
time
cup
so that
either.
you can then, by the end of it, feel confident creating your own projects in the future. So this is all going up for free on YouTube, and I've just separated it by level, just like in terms of chapter, so you know what to expect in terms of difficulty. But if you follow it from start to finish, rest assured you can create a donut and coffee. That final image there, you can get there because There are 500,000 people who completed the last version
believe
of this
this is the
tutorial that I
3.0
made 3 years
version.
ago.
Yeah, this is.
There's even a
Yeah,
blended
yeah,
donuts
the 3.0.
subreddit where you can see the results of people that finished the last course. So it might look advanced at this stage, like, oh, I don't know 3D, how am I gonna, you can get there, right? If you just follow it through to the end. Now, this is part 1 of level 1, so this is going to be the basics of the basics, and we are going to start with the user interface. And just to keep it interesting, I promise you, if you finish the end of this video, you will learn how to set a monkey head on fire.
This does seem the same.
Random, but
This maybe
you'll see.
just use the same.
So, open Blender for the first time, and this is what you should see. Now, this big area here,
that
this
is
big
2.0.
patch of
Oh,
space
it's the
is called the
2.8 version.
3D viewport, and it's where you'll spend.
Ah,
All right, we're wasting everybody's time. Blender, Doughnut
3.0.
3.0.
Dang. All right, there we go. Beginning.
All right.
Yep, there's probably just go through the playlist.
Yeah. Go through the playlist. You're right.
If you've just opened Blender for the first time and then you've tried
All right,
to...
he's gonna give us the same spiel.
I, for example, have been using Blender for 18 years, and I still have not touched some parts of Blender, like scripting. Never touched it. Because I don't need to, for what it is that I'm trying to do. This fly is going to kill me. It's if you're familiar with the
tell he was
80-20
older,
rule,
wiser.
I think
Yeah.
there's really about
He's
20%
just more
of
Yeah, he's got better
Blender's
lighting.
features that you'll
Yeah.
use in 80 or 90% of projects. And that's what I want to teach you in this tutorial series. And then since I think doing is the best way to learn, along the way we'll also be building our very own Doughnut, of course. The Doughnut, what I'm known for. This is the 3rd time I'm making a Doughnut tutorial series. Every time Blender releases a new version, I make this series. So if you finish this full series, you will end up with a Doughnut that looks very similar to this. So let's get started. This big window that you can see right here opened up, this is called the 3D viewport, and it's where you'll spend probably 90% of your time, because everything you need to visualize, whether it's an animation or an archviz or anything like that, it all happens right here. So by default, you can see you get 3 objects. You've got a cube, you've got what looks like a ball on a piece of string, that's a lamp, and then you've got a camera, this little, what would you call that, like a triangle arrow looking thing. It's a camera, okay? And then if you were to render this by going to render image, or hitting the hotkey F12, it would take a snapshot from that camera view, okay? And although this looks very similar to what you were just looking at, this one actually has lighting information, okay? You got shadow, you got some light coming off the top here, and if you had textures or materials and everything else, it would all be calculated, okay? So if you've already used other 3D software, you're already familiar with the concept, but this is one of the basic principles of 3D rendering. What you build in the 3D viewport is sort of like a simplified version of what it is you're trying to create. And then when you're ready for that final image, you hit render, and then it uses your CPU or your GPU to crunch all the numbers and calculate the light and the bounces and everything like that to create that final beautiful image. So that's the basics. All right, but you might notice, like, okay, well, all right, can we move this thing? How do we even do something basic like move it? There's 2 ways you could do it. One would be to use the Move tool in your toolbar. If you activate that, you can see that over the cube now you get these arrows. And if you were to click and drag on any of those arrows, you would move it along that axis. If you clicked on the white circle in the middle, then that would just be sort of like free dragging it, okay? Now, you could do it that way, but actually, I never do it that way, because it is far easier to just learn the hotkey, which in this case is G for grab. Okay, so if you just hit G, your cursor doesn't have to be anywhere near it, and I'm not clicking, my hands are off the clicker, it's just attached to your cursor basically the moment you hit G. And then if you just do a single left click, it will confirm its movement. So G, click. And my cursor could be anywhere, right? And I can do it, which is actually good, because you don't have to like think about where is my cursor. Do I have to like get it on here and then hit it? No, it just allows you to work really fast. Excuse me while I get a drink of water. I know I'm only 2 minutes into the video. 4 minutes. All right, anyways. Now, one thing you're missing with this is those axes lines, like being able to move it along a specific axis is actually a really common action. You want to use it all the time. And you can do that after you have hit G by typing the letter of the axes. So there are 3 axes, and the axes letters are X, okay, which is the left and right, Y, which is back and forwards, and then Z, which is up and down. Some 3D softwares call the Y-axis the up and down, but Blender's it's the Z, the blue. The blue
always messes me up when I go to
Alternatively, you can also, as you're moving it, if you hold down on your mouse, on your scroll wheel, if you push in, that's called the middle mouse button, push in until it clicks, and just hold that, and you can see you get this little line that draws out, and then you can just drag it to the nearest line, nearest axis, and it will automatically snap to that, which is really handy.
Make sure you hit G first.
Pretty cool.
Yeah,
not too bad.
I actually totally forgot about that.
Okay, so that's moving things. Now, the other 2 actions that are really common is rotate and scale. And you can, again, you could use the tool just by clicking here, and then you can, rotate it on a specific axis. You could click in the middle and like do a trackball thing. Scale, exact same thing. Scale it like that. But again, I recommend learning the hotkeys, which you can learn just by hovering over it. The hotkey for this one, so where it says shortcut, shift spacebar, it's technically true. You could activate it from this little menu here if you hit shift spacebar, but it's the one after that, R. Really easy to remember, R for rotate. Okay, so rotate, and then you can hit the letter of the axes as well, or do that same holding the middle mouse button. Oh, that's weird. Maybe because I did it after tapping it. Anyways, and then you've got scale, which is hovering over it, S for scale. Okay, S, X, Y, and Z, like that. And if you want to cancel a movement, you can hit escape, or you can just right click as well, and that'll also cancel the movement. But yeah, so you can see you could do quite a lot just with those few little movements there. Okay, so that's how you move stuff about. Now, let's talk about the next thing you probably want to learn is like, how do I actually move my view? Like, how could I look and explore the rest of the scene? And that is also done with your middle mouse button. Okay, so if you click in on your scroll wheel until it clicks, you are orbiting. That is how you orbit. And my laptop people with trackpads, you are panicking right now because you've just realized you don't have a middle mouse button. You can do it in a pinch by going to the top right hand corner. There's a little gizmo. And if you just click and drag on that, you can see that you are able to free rotate around. Alternatively, you can also go edit preferences, and then underneath input, if you click emulate 3-button mouse, this will enable you to holding down Alt. If you then hold down left click, it just does the same thing as the middle mouse button, which is pretty cool. It's not bad. Whilst you're here, by the way, you might also, depending on the size of your screen, you might want to change the resolution, because by default it's 1, which on my 4K monitor, you can see that my buttons and the text is really small. And if you crank it all the way up, you can get it to something comfortable. 0.4 or 5 is what I would normally go for. And by the way, I'm snapping it, like as you're dragging something, if you hold down Control, it's using incremental numbers, so it keeps it to like a whole number. I'd normally go like 1.4 if I was using it myself, but it's a tutorial, so I'll keep it big so you guys can see what I'm getting at. Cool. And another thing, just while I'm here, just mentioning, some of you are from other 3D software, 3ds Max, Maya, that kind of thing. You might find it helpful to know there's an industry compatible key map that you could enable, which I'll put them up on the screen here, but it's more common keyboard shortcuts if you use to other software. But for this tutorial series and everyone else, I recommend sticking to the Blender one, because of course, all the hotkeys and everything you'll learn whilst learning Blender will be for this hotkey thing. Anyways, all right, okay, so that's orbiting. Okay, now you can see as I orbit around, it's like locked on to my middle of my screen here. Okay, if I want to move somewhere else, that is pan, which is shift middle mouse button. Okay, now I'm shifting my view to somewhere else where I could pan around that place and shift again. And if you're on a trackpad, you could also use this, move the view, this little hand icon thing at the top there do invest in a mouse, please. You will need it for 3D. You really should get a mouse. It's going to be tough. The other thing that I'm doing right now is I'm using the scroller to zoom in and out. You can also use this little magnifying glass up there, or hold down Control, and then again click in on the middle mouse, and that will use a smooth movement rather than the scroll wheel, which is quite jaggedy. Okay, cool. So let's say you've moved the cube all the way over there. So you could, if you wanted to go and inspect your cube, you could, work your way over there by using Shift middle mouse button to pan over there. But it is far easier to just learn the hotkey number pad period, which will focus on any selected object. So if I want to go to my camera over there, I can select my camera, and number pad period will take me over to there. Again, my laptop users are going, oh no, I don't have a number pad. All right. The alternative way to do it is hold down the tilde key, which is that weird key underneath your escape key you've probably never used before. That brings up a pie menu with a bunch of view options, and view selected is focus. View selected will take you there.
I don't have a number pad.
Okay, cool. So we've learned orbiting with middle mouse, Shift middle mouse to pan, and then Control middle mouse to zoom in and out or scroll. The other one you probably want to learn is align your view to axes, because it's something that you, new beginners often end up upside down, and they're like, how did this happen? So you can go to bring yourself the right way up just by clicking one of these letters on your axes up here. Okay, so if you clicked that, I'm now the right way. Well, am I the right way up? Yes, I'm the right way up. I'm just focused on a weird part of the scene. That's why it's very weird. Alternatively, instead of these, so there's the 3 axes that you could snap yourself to. You could also learn the hotkeys, which is number pad 1 for front view, 1 for front view, 3 for side view, and 7 for top view. That's only number pad. It doesn't work for your keys along the top unless you wanted to enable that over here, emulate number pad, and then it would do that. But yeah, so that's handy as well. You might also find, you'll notice, that in this view, this is orthographic mode. Okay, so we can't see the other sides of our cube right now. It's a weird looking cube, but we can't see the other sides because this is orthographic mode. It's like looking at it with a focal length of infinity, right? So there's no depth in our scene right now, which is actually really handy, and it defaults to it for this align to view thing. Immediately, because you usually want that, but the hotkey for that is number pad 5, and that will take you in and out of perspective mode. You can also do it up there like that. You can see the difference. Oh, and another way that you could see align to view, because there's a couple of ways. You could also use that tilde key. That'll take you to the top, the right, the side, etc. You could also use the viewport. You could change those. It's also got the hotkeys there if you happen to forget them. And the other way is the same as ZBrush, if you're familiar with ZBrush. I just cleared the location of that with Alt-G. You don't need to remember that one. That's a weird one. Similar to ZBrush, holding down Alt whilst middle mouse button orbiting will also snap it to the nearest axis, which is also really handy as well. So if I'm moving around and I'm I want to look up, just hold down Alt and it'll just snap it there, which is really handy. So that's kind of the 3D viewport. We'll obviously get way more into this as we delve into the other lessons. But whilst we're here, these other sections over here. So on the right hand side, this is your properties. And as you can imagine, it's the properties of things in the 3D viewport, or the scene. You can change render settings or things here. And look, there's a lot here. I would strongly recommend not trying to learn all the values because you're not going to remember them anyway. We'll go through them as they're needed in this tutorial series. I think the best way to learn is to just do for something that you need to do. So that's what I try to teach. These options, some of these options will change depending on what is selected. So if my camera is selected, you can see I get a camera icon, and then I could change some camera settings. If my cube is selected, I get some material settings, right? I could click material and I could change the color to red, and I could see a beautiful gray red color. It's a weird looking red. The reason it's not changing over here in the 3D viewport is because, again, this is a simplified view of the final render. So there's no material properties in this view. We'll get to viewport rendering later on, but for now, you would see it though if you were in rendered, again, F12 to do an actual render. Now at the top here, we have got a outliner. So this is keeping a running inventory of everything that you've got in your 3D viewport at the moment. So we've got 3 objects and we've got 1 collection. So a collection is just, it's like a folder basically. Simple way to think of it. So you can like organize things. You can rename things just by double clicking on it. Yeah, whatever, right? And so that'll automatically update as you add things to the scene. Like if I was to duplicate my object, which I could do by hitting Shift D to duplicate, you can see there's created another object right up there in the outliner. So if I ever like lose something and I'm like, oh, where's that thing? I can just find it on here and then just, you know, bam, whoops, bam. Oh, by the way, I just accidentally tapped number pad 0, which is how you can look through the camera view. You could also do it by hitting the little camera icon on the right there, or by going viewport, camera, or by hitting the tilde key. So there are 4 places to get viewport options depending on what device or whatever it is that you're looking at. I deleted something by hitting X. You could also do it by hitting delete. By the way, I'm throwing a lot of keys at you, keyboard shortcuts. It's a lot to take in, especially when you're starting. So I created a keyboard shortcut PDF, and the link for that is in the description. It's just a list, it's like 3 or 4 pages of the most common hotkeys that you'll need to learn, or you might need to reference as you're using Blender. So you can basically load it up on another monitor whilst you're working, and you've got it there as reference if you need it. I used to make it like a bonus for signing up for my newsletter, but now I'll just make it free. So you don't have to subscribe. You can just click that link, view it, and hopefully that'll make it easier to use Blender. You can still subscribe to my newsletter. It's a weekly newsletter on tutorials, artworks, and things that I find in the 3D industry. So if you want to keep up to date and learn new things, you can subscribe to that in the description as well. But that's it for this one, because we have covered quite a lot of ground. So we'll keep it simple. And open up a brand new scene in Blender, and then join me in part 2, which is where we'll actually start making that donut now that you've got the basics. So we'll be learning about adding objects and, you know, modeling and all that kind of stuff. So click here on the screen, and I hope to see you.
All right, let's make a donut.
This tutorial series was brought to you by my company Polygon. High quality models and textures for better renders. Alright, enough faffing around, as my late grandfather would say. We have learned the basics of the interface, all the hotkeys, we fooled around. Now we're going to start building that donut. Okay, so we are going to delete our default cube, which is just the delete key, or X, which is the older shortcut, and we're going to replace it with something new. So to add a new object in Blender, you need to go up to Add, up here, and you get this long list, or you can hit the hotkey, which is what I'm going to be using for the...
Been informed that while our Blender guru is talking, we are not audible. So when we're commenting, I'll just try to remember to pause it.
Oh, I see.
The tutorial, Shift A. And truthfully, most of these options a lot of the options you rarely use. Like speaker, I don't think I've ever used. Most of the time what you're looking for is mesh, because to render anything, you really need to start with a mesh. Like if you followed like a character tutorial, you might be surprised when they're like, all right, start with a cube, and then, you know, we'll bip-biddy-boo, and we'll form the character eventually from that, right? But you have to start with something. So usually you pick the object which most resembles what it is you're trying to create. And in this case, there's a really easy one. It's the donut-shaped one, the torus. Torus. That is a word I never would have learned, except for Blender. I would have called that a donut, but evidently the mathematicians decided they need a special word for it. Okay, when you add an object and do certain actions actually in Blender, you get options straight after adding it, okay? But they're kind of hidden because they're trying to stay out of the way unless you need them. And it's down there in the bottom left-hand corner. There's a little box, which if you click it, it expands. And then you get options like the resolution and the size of it and everything. Now, if you don't see that box, it's probably because you accidentally clicked off it, okay? It'll only show it after you've just added it. If you click off it, it assumes you're fine with it, you're good, okay? Now, if you haven't done another action since then, if you haven't edited and clicked on something else or whatever, you can temporarily bring it back for one last time, really, until you do something else with F9. Okay, so F9 will bring those same options back just at your cursor, basically. But if you don't see it, then, just re-add it, delete it and re-add it, and you'll get those options back again. Okay, so with this, let's make some changes to it. Okay, so for starters, this is a very thin donut. And you want to know this maybe, but this is the third time I've made this donut beginner series. Every time there's a new version of Blender, I make this series again. This is number 3. And basically, for the last 5 years of my life, I have been seeing every day on Twitter when somebody tags me in their donut render. And I've become very good at realizing the attributes that make donuts look good. And I think the best donuts are the ones that look thick. The ones that look like, oh yeah, I want to sink my teeth into that because it's got a lot of icing, it's got a lot of dough. I don't know, just something about a fat donut and just like, yeah, that looks delicious. So I'm going thick this time, okay? And then the major segments and the minor segments, these are, as you can probably see, we'll call it the resolution of our donut, but it is it's the amount of geometry. Okay, so this, you are probably tempted to go like really high, because this is what I did when I first started using Blender in 3D. I'm like, I'm trying to make something high quality and realistic, so it's got to be smooth. Okay, so I'm going to go really high res. It's actually the opposite. You do not want that. I immediately realized when I started using this is a terrible idea. For one, you can't go back, okay? When you go high. You can, if you go low, you can add other things, which is what we're going to do, to make it smoother, but it's harder to go back. And also with this, it takes longer to render. It's harder to work with because it's a bigger file. Your viewport slows down, your computer's whirring away harder. And also it is harder to work with, okay? When we enter edit mode, and we're going to do this later and like do some edits and stuff here, I have to work with this many vertices, these little points, and that is just too much. So you actually want the exact opposite. So we want to keep it as minimum. Okay, so the minimum amount of detail depends on what it is you're trying to create. We could go like really low, but we're actually going to use part of this donut for the icings.
Thanks, Mod. I think I'm done. I think I nailed it.
Oh, yeah? Yeah? Do you think you got your perfect donut there?
I mean, I could use some color. We'll stick with him and see what else he's got. But
so I'm trying to think, okay, what am I going to do with the icing? Am I going to make some like dribbly bits going down it? I don't know. Having done this a few times, I think I'm going to go with around like somewhere around 40 to 20. Something like that. Let's go 16. 16 looks good. Okay. By the way, and you would never know this because how could you if you're a beginner, but like it's also a good idea to try to keep square faces, because as a general, if you're making something organic and it's going to be smooth, if it's got rectangular faces, it can like stretch the shading and things just start to look weird. So I'm trying to keep it generally to a square face. Doesn't have to be a hard rule, but something like that. All right, then I'm going to click off it and I'm done. And I can't get those options back temporarily with F9, but you get the idea. Okay, cool. So, great. Let's talk about, first of all, the size of this donut, okay? Because although it looks like, what is the scale of our scene here, right? We're like looking into the distance there, like, how big is this grid floor? We don't know. It could be microscopic. It could be 500 meters. It could be landscape size. We don't know. We actually do. Okay, so each one of these grid squares here, is it 1 meter or 2? I think it's 1 meter. Hang on. Yes, it is 1 meter. Okay, so this actually, the size of our donut is humongous. It is 3 meters by 3 meters. Okay, so if you, sorry, I didn't tell you the hotkey. N will bring up your properties. Very handy, convenient shortcut. You just bring it up when you want to learn. Click on your object and then go to item, and then you can see details around your object. Okay, so it's 3 meters by 3 meters, which is like roughly like 2 people laying down lengthways. By the way, speaking of that, if you are American, for my American audience, you can change your units to be Wacky Imperial, and you can get 9.9 periwinkles or whatever it is. I don't know. You can do that. Well, I'm going to use 3 meters because the rest of the world is also watching. All right. So this obviously needs to be much smaller. So we're going to scale it. Scaling, the hotkey S. Scale it right down to the size of a donut, which I've learned is around about, like, the biggest size would be around about like 10 centimeters, right? Yeah, roughly. So yeah, 10 centimeters is what we're looking for. Something like that. We could have done it when we added the torus, but that was radius, and radius is like you got to double it to make it. And I'm like, just scale it down after we make it, and it'd be much easier to figure out. Okay. Now,
I'm dumb.
Yeah.
But 10 centimeters is...
I think it's 0.1 meter.
Okay, that's what I thought too.
Is that what he has on his? Yeah, 0.1 meter.
Okay, I can't
That's
see
what I
that.
got.
All right. Close enough.
We're using our brains here in
Yeah.
the CSU libraries.
I'm a sculptor, not a mathematician. All right.
the other thing I want to do is apply the scale because, and this is another thing you would never know if you're a beginner, but it's sort of a running joke in the 3D world, but like anytime you run into a problem with your mesh, something's not working, apply the scale. Because if your scale is wrong, other things tend to perform wrong, like modifiers and other things like that. So this scale here should pretty much always be 1 if you can, yeah, try and make it always 1, roughly speaking. So to apply your scale, you go Control A and then hit scale. Okay, so Control A for apply and then scale. And now it is 1. Nothing has changed, but it just means
What have I done?
things will work better in the future.
Control 8 on the wrong window.
I did. There we go.
And I'm just doing it because I know I'll forget it, and then they'll be like in the comments, and people go, "Why is mine messed up?" And it was because of this part I didn't say hit. Anyway, all right. Okay, so how do we get rid of these jagged lines? Because that's probably your next question. How do we get rid of those jagged lines? There are two types of shading in Blender or in 3D: flat and smooth. So by default, it is flat. To change it to smooth, we just right-click and then hit Shade Smooth. Okay. And when we do that, it is basically like for these faces here, it has taken, instead of treating each face separately, if they're an adjacent face, it's going to like stretch the light across. It's going to treat it as if it is one continuous face rather than 2 faces. So for organic objects, which means length, things that are flowing essentially, or rounded things maybe, you generally want smooth things, and then for like architecture or hard surface things, you want flat things. So Shade Smooth. So we've got rid of that. That's good. Now you'll notice that it has not fixed the silhouette of our object. Okay, so Shade Smooth is a illusion. Okay, it's not actually adding any geometry, which is great because it's light, it's lightweight, it's easy to work with. It's not adding geometry, but your silhouette will still be broken, or it will still look jagged. The only way to fix that is to add more detail. It's something that games, that's kind of the thing. If you want to look at a game and go like, I wonder how poly this thing is. Like, look at the silhouette of a character or the shape of a building or something like that. And if you see jagged lines, you can basically see the mesh, like how high poly something is by the silhouette. So we can fix that with something called a subsurf operation, okay, or subdivision. And there are a few ways to do it, but the way we do it in Blender is with adding a modifier. Okay, so we click this little wrench. Or is it a spanner? Is that a spanner? It's been a while since I got my hands dirty. Anyways, it's the Modifier Panel over here. And then go up and underneath Add Modifier. If you click it, you get a whole bunch of different options here. And the one that we're looking for is, I mean, you use it so often. I wish it was at the top, but it's not. It's down here, Subdivision Surface. So you click that, and you might see that it has now smoothed out ever so slightly. You can see that edge there, the jagged edge is no longer there. Or it is there, but it is less. So what is Subsurf, it's called a Subsurf, even though it's called Subdivision. Subsurf Modifier, what it is doing is and I'm going to temporarily turn this off by that little icon there, that's Viewport. So if you uncheck that, it's disabling it for your Viewport. And that one is for render, if you want to disable it for your render. Okay, so what it is doing is, you can see the edge there, right? If there are 3 points that make up that edge there, Subsurf is now adding in, it's doubling the amount of detail across the entire mesh, not just the silhouette, the entire mesh. Every single point, it is now adding another one. Now, if you do 2 levels, so levels, viewport, and render, you can probably guess, that's just one operation, okay? If I set this to 2, which is what you would see Yeah. Set it to 2, which is what you see when you would render it. It's doing it again. Okay, so it's, I guess the word's exponentially. It's exponentially adding detail every time you add this. So it's going to do it again and again and again. So obviously you don't want to go too high because otherwise your render times would be crazy. And yeah, you just want to keep it as low as possible. So often I keep it 1 or 0 whilst I'm working in the viewport, and then for the render I keep it at like 1 or 2 or something. Anyways, all right, okay, so we're spending a little long on this, but I need to just give you some background on how to make things look smooth without really going high res. Okay, so as I teased before, this mesh is made up of little points, and we can edit those points and adjust things and whatnot by going into edit mode, which you can do by hitting tab on your keyboard. Okay, another way is to go up to the top left hand corner, change from object mode to edit mode. Okay, so tab is just a fast way to switch between those two modes. Another way, third way, because why not? Control tab will bring up the pie menu, and then you can enter into, along with just object and edit mode, but like texture paint and sculpt mode, and we'll do a bunch of stuff later on, but edit mode. Okay, so in edit mode, we can see that we're now able to see the skeleton roughly that makes up our mesh. Okay, each of these little points here is what makes up our mesh. So these points are called vertices. Sorry, a single one is called a vertex. Multiples are called vertices. Always get them confused because it's got an S on it as well. It's like vertices, vertexes. It's not vertexes, it's vertices. Anyways, these little points make up our mesh. And on each of these points, if you've got 3 or more, usually 4 is the ideal one you're usually aiming for when you're making meshes, you can make a face. Okay, so if I just delete, I'll just hit X and I'll show you what it looks like without a face. Okay, so between each of these points there, I'll add another one with F, there is a face. Okay, so all the points together make up a face, and then that makes up your mesh. So what this means is that with these points, if I want to change the look of my mesh, I can take some of these points and I can move them. Okay, and you use the exact same hotkeys as you did before. So to move something, it is G for grab. Okay, so if I move this up and then go back out of edit mode to object mode, you can see as I move around, it's now got a little lump on it. Okay, pretty handy. So I could do that, right? I could tweak the shape of my mesh. Okay, so let's say like I wanted to, like make my donut look kind of like lopsided, or like add some detail, because this is necessary, by the way. Your brain, when it thinks about objects, because you've seen them so many times, it simplifies it in your head. You think of a donut as being round, but it's bumpy, it's lumpy. It was thrown in the fire. The guy who like made the dough, it was all lopsided. But in your head, you just think of it as a round circle. The digital world will always give you the perfect thing. So you need to go in and add those imperfections. There's an old quote, don't know who said it. Imperfection is the digital perfection. Yeah, I don't know. It's very, very true. So think of that. So anyways, we need to add some lumps to it and make our donut lopsided. So if we held down Shift, we could select multiple points, and then we could drag these out. I could do this. I could, slowly go through it. Now this is tedious, as I'm sure you can see. Clicking, lots and lots of clicking, little points. And that's really because that's not the way I would do this. What I would do is use a feature that you use all the time, and that is proportional editing. So if you click this little button at the top here, or the hotkey for that is O, turn that on and off. What this will do is that now when I rotate scale or hit G to grab and move it, now it's actually grabbing vertices around it and it is moving it together as a whole. Now by default, your proportional size is really high, okay? So if I scroll up, I can gradually bring the fall off down to what actually makes sense for my donut, okay? Now this was actually a point, I was reading the comments on the last video, the last version of this I made, and this was a point that a lot of people got stuck on. If you can't see this ring here, just keep scrolling up, because it is there. If you see top left-hand corner, actually it gives you the measurement. As I scroll, you can see the measurement of my fall off. What you're looking for is something like a 0.04. If you can't see 0.04 meters, just keep scrolling up until you see it. And if you are on trackpad, because those people also got stuck, because they're like, how do I scroll while I'm doing it? All you do is, on trackpad, you tap G, then do a single click, and then down here in the bottom left-hand corner, you've got those options again. And then you could adjust your proportional size to to like a 0.04. And then if you move, you should see the correct proportional fall off, okay? Really, guys, invest in a mouse, please. Going trackpad, look, it's fine for Facebook, but like you're doing stuff in 3D, you gotta have a mouse. Come on, all right. Okay, so now that I do this with my fall off radius, and if I just scroll up and down, I can adjust and I can make my donut look however I want, much more easily, okay? Make this part go out, maybe make this part have like a little lump that's sort of skew-if like that. Maybe this middle part, sort of like this. Okay, and I'll do another one here, something like that. Okay, now that's a little lopsided. It's a little bit repetitive of what's on that side. And this is maybe a little bit too far. Just sort of playing it by eye. But I have to keep this for the rest of the donut, for the rest of the tutorial. So I'm trying to do it well. Okay, and something else, by the way, another hotkey. You could see that if I want to move this up, if I was to move it like this, right? It's moved everything also left to right as well, okay? Because of my camera angle, okay? If I'm looking at something like this and I'm moving it, it is moving it across the donut. So it's scrunching everything going this way. That's not what I want. I want it to go directly up. So it means I have to get my camera angle like right down here to do that up. Alternatively, a better way, not to throw too many hotkeys at you, get my keyboard shortcuts if you haven't already, link in the description. But another hotkey is Alt-S, which instead of moving it just arbitrarily, this will now move it according to which direction those faces are pointing. And this is actually perfect for this exact case because we've got, points, rounded around it. And it's just, it's tedious to have to get my camera angle exactly right when really I just want to be able to select certain parts and then pull them in and out. So Alt-S allows me to do that. The shrink and fatten tool is what it is called. But other softwares, I think they call it move along normals or something like that. Something like that. All right. And then maybe the base as well. I think we should make it a little bit lopsided on the base. Move that down.
I wasn't paying attention.
Something like that. Now there is a sculpt tool, which we'll talk about when we get to the icing. That could also do this, but that is not the point of this tutorial. So I'm just doing proportional editing because, to be honest, like this proportional editing is perfect for this kind of thing.
You go back into Untitled Mode or Edit Mode.
Cool. So it's just entering.
So Jeff's a little bit behind here. If you go into Edit Mode, are you there?
Yeah. Hold on. I got 3 monitors now. Edit Mode.
All right. Then up at the top, you should see like this little graph, like the slope on like the center of the top, like a little. No. All the way in the middle of the.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Should be like a little graph.
Oh yeah, with the proportional. So I've got that.
Now
I'm
if
gonna go
you
with that.
click a thing, you should be able to like move everything around it.
Yeah, I have been doing that.
Okay. Yeah, I don't think he was in Sculpt Mode yet, though.
Oh, I thought because wasn't he doing the inflate and stuff?
No, because that was just Alt-S.
Oh,
so
that's all that I hadn't realized. Okay,
Alt-S. Yeah, it's Alt-S is what you got to do for that. Given donut tumors.
Word. Okay, great. That's all I missed.
Cool.
Into edit mode to do your changes, going into object mode to see how it looks, and then swapping back out with tab again. And that's really all it is. I think this is too thick on this side now. Too lopsided. I went too far with the imperfections. But that also comes into like the style of it, of what you're doing. Yeah. Something like that. Oh, by the way, another side point I just mentioned, when we're talking about object and edit mode, okay? A big problem a lot of beginners have that I find is that later on, you'll be like, I'll say, all right, so select your lamp and your camera or something like that. And they'll be like, oh, I can't click on it. What's happened? It's because you are still in edit mode, okay? Edit mode means you cannot click on anything else other than the object that you are editing. You're still in this. When you switch back to object mode, you're now able to click on any object in your scene, but in edit mode, it is locked to that view. So if you can't click on things, just remember, check what mode you're in. You're probably in edit mode. Switch to object mode and you'll be fine. Okay, just to finish on something completely random, because why not? Just throw it in there just as a little Easter egg for those of you that made it to the end of the video, is something cool. If you go to select, there's an option there for select random, and this will just select at random vertices on your mesh, and then you've got a little ratio thing you could change down the bottom there. Then, if you used Alt-S, you would basically make a lumpy looking donut. So it's kind of like a quick way. If you wanted to make a lumpy looking donut, you could do it that way. And also if you change the fall off type, okay, so this is that ring, that little circle that goes around it, right? If you changed it from the smooth one to sharp, then you would make it something else, like a spiky warped donut. I don't know. It actually looks better without the subsurf and like flat. It's like, no, it does not. Okay, I don't know what I was thinking with that.
It's under select, right?
Anyways, all right, just something random to finish on. Okay, so play with your donut, get something that you like, and then join.
Yeah, so if you go into edit mode and then do select random.
I don't see select random. Do I need to have a vertex selected maybe?
It's right above checker select.
I see. Oh, there it is. Okay, I see. There we go. There we go. Now I got it. So now I can do Alt-S and shrink my donut into this weird globular mass.
Nice.
I guess I still have proportional editing turned on, so it's...
Mm.
Ooh, yeah, you could get a nice curler going with this.
See, select random.
Hold on. I have an idea. So I could do that, then I could do Alt-S and shrink it down.
Ooh, nice.
I'm gonna do that. Yeah, so how I'm selecting all these rings separately is I'm using the Alt key. You might go over this a little bit later. But yeah, just doing Shift and then holding Alt to select the whole edge loop. And that'll select one whole loop around the donut. So I hit Alt, click on the actual edge, not the vertice. It'll still work if you click on the vertice, it just might do it, it might like choose the wrong direction and click like this one here, and you don't want that, so click on the edge.
Nice.
Da-da-da-da.
Pretty good. Cool.
Let's go on
Join
part
me
3.
in the next part as we do the icing. So click here and I will see.
Lead an animated life. Get your degree online from the Los Angeles
the
Film
YouTube
School.
ads are trying to
Learn the latest.
They
To
know.
make renders
They know.
like
We've been
these,
targeted.
you need high quality assets, which is why I created Polygon, a library of models, textures, and HDRs that work in any 3D software. Get started today at polygon.com. Welcome back to the Donut Show, where we make virtual donuts that we cannot eat. In this part, we're going to be making the icing.
Mod, he stole your joke.
wooded.
So,
Fun to play with, not to eat.
Yeah.
Yeah.
with our wonderful donut here selected, we're going to, well, first of all, yeah, like icing. I mean, you could do it a million ways. You could like add a plane and then like model it out and try and pull it down and then sculpt it and do a bunch of different ways. The easiest way really whenever you're doing something is to like try to reuse part of your mesh wherever you can. So we've already got the shape of a donut. We can duplicate our donut, shave off half of it, and then we've basically got icing. So that's what we're going to do. So enter into edit mode, and we want to select half of our donut. So if we went into, you can see that, like if we looked at it from this, you know, if we drew, you can see we're missing part of it, right? Because it's like, this is one of those cases, is what I'm trying to say, where you need to use straight on, okay? So, or number pad 1, number pad 3, whatever you want to do, something like that. Okay, and by the way, when you use this, it also switches you to orthographic mode. Okay, so perspective mode is where you've got the like the depth fall off, okay? And then orthographic mode is when it is like as if it was like on a focal length of like infinity, so you're seeing like the actual what's the best way to describe it? No perspective, essentially, zero perspective. And you can toggle between that, by the way, also with a number pad 5 or by clicking this little gizmo on the right-hand side there at any point. Doesn't have to be in a certain view. Okay, cool. So if we were to just drag over this right now, it looks like we've got half of our donut. However, if you moved around, you would see we're missing the other half of it, okay? And that's because it's hard, okay? The mesh is hard, and therefore to select on the other side of it, we have to be able to see through it. And we can do that by going up here and toggling X-ray. Or the hotkey for that is Alt-Z, and that will now show us right through it. And now when we drag over it, you can see that we've got exactly the top half of our donut all the way around. Okay,
You've got like a mushroom cloud over there.
Making a nuclear explosion.
Yeah.
perfect. So we want to duplicate this and then separate it. Okay, so I'm going to hit Shift D, which is how you duplicate, or you can go up to Mesh and then click on Duplicate, wherever that would be. Right there, duplicate at the top. Yeah, but Shift D. Okay, now when you do that, you can see that it is now locked onto my cursor, okay? And it's telling me, where do you want to place this duplicate? And I don't. I want to leave it exactly where it was. So if I hit Escape or right click, it's going to cancel the movement and put exactly where it was, but it is now duplicated it. Now what we want to do is move this to its own object, because you can see that we've now got vertices on top of vertices, and they need to be their own separate objects. So to do that, the hotkey is P. P for part of the mesh. Go to another, I don't know. It's P for whatever reason. It's always been P. And we're looking for selection. So separate by the selected part of the mesh. Okay. And now in object mode, if we switch out of X-ray mode, you can see that we now have two objects, and actually we can see them up here in the outliner as well, okay? And now just very quickly, because I know that some of you will have just messed up accidentally, and you are now screaming at the screen, oh no, how am I gonna fix this? When you did this step, you duplicated it, you right click to cancel it, and then you accidentally did a single click. If you clicked something else, you've now got mesh on top of a mesh, and you don't know which vertex is which, like which is the one that was the one that you just made, right? Or which one is the actual donut. So if you ever run into this problem, what you can do is to select only things that are connected, because these are no longer connected, right? There's bits that are not connected. It's Control L, or just mouse over and then just hit a single L. L for loose parts. Is it? I don't know what it is. Link. Oh, it's linked. Okay, select linked. There they go. Then when you do that, you can actually find the right part of your mesh. Okay, so now I've actually just got just my donut and then just my icing. Fantastic. Okay, so up here in the outliner, you can see two objects, and it's probably a good time to name it, okay? So you can name it by just double clicking in the outliner, and we can call it icing. Another way to name it is if you've just got your object selected anywhere in your 3D viewport, it's the same hotkey as Windows renaming files. It's F2, and I can now type in donut, and there we go. So two things, and we could organize it however we want. Cool. So our icing is currently looking like a skin tight something. It's got to have some thickness to it, okay? And we can do that with the modifiers. Okay, so going over here to your modifier stack again, we are looking for something called the Solidify Modifier right here. There really needs to be a search function for the modifier stack, but there's just a lot here at the moment. So Solidify, okay. Now when we do this, you might not have actually really seen much change. If you went into Wireframe Mode, which you could do by hitting Z and then dragging to the left to go Wireframe, or up here, so this is Solid View Mode, this is Wireframe Mode, okay? In Wireframe Mode, we're able to see just the raw mesh without any faces. You can see that it looks like a donut within a donut, but it's got thickness to it, but it is pointing it in the wrong direction. So this offset setting here from -1, we want to change that to 1. And now go back to solid view. Okay, so that is like a doona of icing. It's a lot. So we're going to turn our thickness down to be something a little more reasonable. And by the way, when you're dragging these values here, here's a tip. you can see that it's like really hard to control because subtle movements is what I need, but it's moving it by a lot. If you hold down Shift, that is not incremental. What is it? Smooth movements? Subtle movements, yeah. Anyways, holding down Shift when you need to use small numbers. And Control, by the way, will snap it to increments. So I use that actually quite a lot. So yeah, Shift for smooth movements and Control for incremental, or both. Smooth, like subtle and incremental. Anyways, all right, I'm giving you all the hotkeys and everything at once. I hope it is not too much for you. All right, I'm gonna go for like something like a 0.0015 of icing, because I want it to look somewhat thick, but like not too thick. Okay. Now, something to keep in mind is that this edge here, it looks kind of weird for a lot of reasons. If we went into flat shading mode, you can see that it's created like a hat, a hat on our donut, okay? And the reason for that is the order of our modifiers here. So a modifier is, what is the best way to think of it? Well, it's working from top to bottom. That's how we'll describe it. Okay, modifiers are fantastic because at any point we can change these settings. It is a non-destructive way of working. This subdivision setting that I had before, I think it's too high, so I can come in here and I can change these settings, okay? Make it lighter. If it was not, if I was to apply it or I did it a different way, I could not change those settings. Non-destructive, it is fantastic. It also means that, it's working from top to bottom. So what I want to do is move this above my subdivision, which I can do by just dragging these dots at the top here, just dragging that up, and you can see that now it's doing the, if I just turn that off, it's doing the thickness part first, and then it is smoothing it, which means that that edge there that was like this before is now being forced to go like this because of the subsurf, because it adds those points and then it kind of averages them out, which is, how subdiv works. There we go. Cool. So now, I don't know, now that thickness doesn't look like enough. So I'll just increase that a little bit. And I'm going to go shade smooth again. Okay. Lovely. Well, we made good time. Let's just jump to the next video. We're actually going to start modeling in the dripping parts of our icing in the next part and doing a little bit of sculpting as well. So click here to join me in the next part, and I'll see you there.
Pampers, the #1 pediatrician recommended brand, helps keep baby skin drier and healthier.
Maybe we're parents.
It knows we're designers and that we crap our pants.
Join over 1 million 3D artists who use Polygon's models and textures to help them make better renders faster. Join for free at polygon.com. Congrats on not giving up yet. It's always fun. Whenever you release a multi-part tutorial series, it's just fun seeing like the viewership drop after.
It is nice having a tutorial like this that you can come back to, because I do remember even getting to this point took me like way too long.
Oh yeah.
And I messed up so much stuff, and now I'm like, can you go faster?
Yeah. You're
like,
sitting here just like, come on, I'm already on the sculpting the icing part from like this, probably what this video is going to do.
Yeah.
After every part, as people quit. So if you did make it, hey, you're staying on track. You haven't given up yet. No, I do hope that you can all stay through. In this part, we are going to be making our icing look more like icing, more dribbled down rather than like a yarmulke or a like half of a bagel or something. Like if I just cut this in half, I feel like that would look pretty close to a bagel. Yeah, it does. We want to make it look more like icing and also make our donut underneath also have a little bit more shape. So, the icing. Okay. Now we want to be able to see our mesh and like manipulate things and everything here, but we can't because it's mostly hidden by our Solidify modifier. So in your modifier stack over here, if we just uncheck this button here, then it will no longer display in edit mode, so I can work with the mesh here, but then I go back to object mode, then you can see the Solidify modifier again. So that's what we want. Okay, so if I was to move this down by hitting G, I gotta turn on my screen keys tool because it's turned off, there we go. If I move this down with G and then went back to object mode, you can see that we've got something that looks like a little droop, a little dribbly bit. So you can guess we are gonna be doing quite a bit of that. I'm gonna turn on proportional editing, as you could probably guess, so that now when I move down, I can scroll up, or no, scroll down, and increase the fall off, and now I can create a big dribbly bit. But you'll notice that straight away there's a couple of problems. Okay, so for one, this bit is sticking straight out, and then also this bit of our icing is clipping through the donut, which would require a whole bunch of fixing and like manually going there. It's not good. So it would be great if we could make it snap to the face underneath. And there is a feature just for that. Okay, so the snapping tool is right up here. Okay, this little magnet icon. Okay, now quick just overview of snapping. Snapping, you can always, whether you go up there and like turn it on or not, you can always temporarily enable it by holding down Control. Okay, so this default is set to increment. So if I'm moving an object, rotating, scaling, that's transforming. Okay, so it's snap during transform. If I'm moving it, if I just hold down Control as I move it, I am temporarily restricting its movement to the grid floor underneath it, basically, because that's the increment that it's looking at. Okay, so I can only move it when I'm holding down Control to that. And that is this exact same thing as if I was to check that, turn that button on, and then move it without hitting Control. Okay, so there's no difference between holding Control or not holding Control. It functions the exact same way. It's just that this way lets you do it without having to hold Control, basically.
Thanks, Mod, for protecting our chat room from bots.
Oh, was your bot?
But
We had a bot squash the bug.
Oh man.
that's also another good point, because there's a hotkey for it. I can't remember what it is, but you sometimes hit it accidentally without realizing, and then you're like, why can't I move things properly? Like it's all messed up. And that's actually a common beginner question. Why can't I move things? Just check that that's not turned on. Just check, yeah, because it's probably turned on. Anyway, okay, so coming back to our donut here. We want to make sure that that's turned on, and I want to change it from snap to increment to snap to face. Okay, and now that I do this, you can see that if I grab this edge here, sorry, that point there, and I just move it down, you can see that part of it is this edge here at least, or this point, is now snapping to the face. Okay, but this part is not. Okay, so there. Okay, okay. I'll try not to say that too much. There is a function for this. Underneath snap to project individual elements, which doesn't explain anything really. Like there's no way you would know that this is the button to push. There's really no clue that that's what to do, but it is. If we check that, now when we use our proportional fall off, anything that falls in the proportional fall off area will now also snap to the face underneath it. And that is how we do it. Now we can do whatever we want here. We can move this around, we can do whatever, and we can make our donut icing look like icing, and it will automatically snap and form the shape of the donut, which is perfect. Now, I've learned from doing donuts many, many, many times. I've made more virtual donuts than probably actual donuts I've ever eaten. I've learned that it's better if you work from reference. Okay, so go to your Google Images and type in donut icing, and then just find an image. Doesn't really matter which one, but like something that you like. Okay, if you like the look of it, like this like extra dribbly one, you could get that. I happen to like this one here. Just save the image, put it somewhere, put it on your desktop, and then I'm going to show you how to bring this into Blender. So we want to split our window here, and you can do that one of two ways. One is to go basically over the edge, a divider of a window here, until you get those little arrows there so that you could change the size of this, right? And just right click there, and then you can say vertical or horizontal split. So, whoops, oh, that didn't.
I believe him, but I'm not going to put an image in.
Yeah, no, I also believe him.
Nothing. Vertical split.
Ryan,
Ta-da.
you ever watch The Sopranos?
No, I have not.
One of my pandemic binges.
How was it?
It was good.
Yeah.
It was a good show. They weren't lying. I don't know why they're advertising it to me or whatever that ad was supposed to be for, but
Yeah.
it was the intro to Sopranos.
Oh, was that?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, interesting.
So we've now got 2 windows. Another way to do it is to go to the top right-hand corner of your screen until you get, there's no button for it, but your cursor becomes a little target pointer thing. And if you just click and drag to the left into it, it will now split the view. If you click and drag to the right, it will now join it. And that used to be the only way you could make extra windows in Blender. You just had to know to do that. There was a little like fold thing there. But anyways, it's kind of an old thing that they've kind of kept because it's pretty handy. So anyways, once I've split the view, this could be anything. So this is a whole bunch of all the features of Blender, and it goes deep. The one we're looking for is Image Editor, which allows you to, guess what, just bring in any old image. So this is the one we're going to do. Okay, now I want to start to model some of the shapes here, and it should result in a far better one than if I just went by eye, because it's one of those lessons you learn that you always think you know how something looks, and then you get to the end and you go, it doesn't look really good, and then you go, oh, I should have just used a reference photo because it's totally different than what I imagined. I want to get a t-shirt that just says reference, because it's like my biggest piece of advice for artists whenever they ask for feedback. I'm like, just look at reference. You got it wrong. And I do it wrong myself. Anyway, so to make this gloopy bit, you probably see that if I like grabbed one of these pieces and I like moved it down, it looks jagged. There's not enough detail here to create that bit. So what we need is more detail. So I am going to apply our subsurf, okay? So to apply anything, it's best to put it before put it to the top, because that's essentially what it's going to do. It has to apply it, and then it's going to be reading from the top anyway, roughly. So I put it to the top, and it's okay, we'll fix this edge after. To apply the subsurf, if we go to this little drop down arrow and then hit apply, or you can just hit Control A while hovering over this, it will apply whatever is in the viewport amount, not the render amount, but the viewport amount. Okay, so I'm just going to, I'll just hit Control A or hit apply. And now, whoops, why is that? Okay, all right. You can see that we now have double the amount of our of vertices on it. I'm temporarily hiding the donut, by the way, which you can do by hitting, you can hide anything temporarily by hitting H, and then Alt H will bring anything back again. So if you just need to temporarily get something out of the way, H, and then Alt H. Okay, but yeah, somehow this is like, I don't know, it's like clipping through it, which we could, it's odd that that's happening. You can see that if I just like randomly click here, that I'm gonna bring this through. Yeah, there is another way, which I'll show you. We're going to use a shrink wrap modifier next, but I want to do this in order to just sort of show you sort of like the problem-solving way of doing things. But anyways, all right, let's find where it was I was going to make that gloopy bit. It doesn't really matter. I can just do it right here. Okay, so I'm going to make a little bit that goes down. This bit over here, this bit can go down even further, like that, right there, and then this I'm going to use to pull down. Now, if I pull, so there's a bug in Blender. I believe it's a bug because it's only happening occasionally and didn't happen in the last version of Blender. Pretty sure this is a bug just because I'm using the beta version of 3.0. For some reason, it is selecting through my mesh, which should not happen, but it's happening right now. And it's very irritating. So I'm going to have to report the bug after I finish recording this. But anyway, it just means I have to be careful. If I pull this down, you can see that the other thing I wanted to do after the Solidify Modifier now is add another Subsurf Modifier so that we get that smooth edge back again. Okay, but if I move it down, it looks, it's a little too stretched. Okay, so you want to try to go as far as you can, but at a certain point you need extra mesh. You need to sort of break this line to create extra parts of the mesh. So the way to do that is to extrude. So if I select part of my mesh here, let's say 3 points like that, and I hit E, that will extrude. So I now get extra faces, extra vertices. And because this is turned on, it should also automatically snap to the face underneath it. And I'm going to do it again. Let's just make an extra long gloopy bit. Okay, so you can see that is a totally different look, right? You've got this bit that is now like free flowing down there rather than feel like it's like stretching an edge. So modeling is, that's really like a big part of modeling is understanding topology and like where to, add more detail where you need it and where not to, etc. I'm just pinching these in, by the way, by grabbing 2 points and then hitting S. But yeah, but you know, I'm trying to keep this fairly simple for this tutorial. Okay, so I've got that little bit there. Now let's do another little bit that goes next to it. So I'll grab this bit, I'll move this down. Let's grab 2 points. Just make this a short little gloopy bit. Or will it be? That looks a little bit weird, actually. It's so odd that bug has happened. I've never seen that bug before. Bugs get fixed surprisingly quickly in Blender, by the way, if you're curious. They are hard to come across because with an open source software like Blender, like so many people are using it and so many people are reporting bugs that, yeah, it is surprisingly more stable than 3ds Max Maya. I say that now and like people will be raging in the comments. No, it's not. It's you know, but I'm pretty sure that's like fairly well agreed upon in the community. But anyways, not to toot Blender's horn because it's definitely not perfect, but it does seem to be fairly stable. That's one of its great points. All right, and you know what? I might make another little gloopy bit over here. You know, I don't want to make this, you know, these parts too long, but I do want to make this look good, and I want to show you sort of the thought process that goes into it. Because some people will then go like, why does his donut tutorial take, you know, why does it take 6 hours to make a donut? Well, it doesn't. I can do it really quick if you want, but you won't learn anything. Anyways, now I'm making on the other side of the donut, let's say over here, like a really big gloopy bit that goes down. But so far down that it's going to extrude another piece down. Hitting E to extrude it down, and then I'll scale that in by hitting S. And let's just move this up and around. All right, that's pretty good. And then I'll make this bit next to it, because that seems to be a common thing. When you've got one gloopy bit, there's another bit that's right next to it. I don't know if that's true or not. Just sort of making it up as I go. Okay, cool, awesome. Well, let's just say we continued that all the way around, but you could fine tune it and make it look as good as you want. Now, another thing to learn is that donuts, unlike this one, I mean, this is actually pretty good, but you could see that the edge, like the donut shape, something happens in the middle of it, okay? And you might be able to see it in other reference photos.
Meet a future mom, a first-time mom, and a seasoned pro.
Yes.
This mom's one step closer to their new minivan.
Basically, usually it's like divoted. It's like it's fat all around it, and then this part on the edge, this one's probably a clear photo, it sort of cuts into it a little bit. And the reason for that, I actually recorded a video that I'll put on the screen here. The reason for that is that when it's cooked, it's put into a fryer. It sits and it just like floats. So half of it is submerged in this fryer, and then it flips, and then they do the other half. So the part that's like resting on the surface of the oil usually is cooked less, because I guess the oil is less hot, I guess. But I guess it would depend on the buoyancy of the donut, so maybe it doesn't happen all the time. But evidently, that seems to be one component of a donut, is that it has that bit that sort of goes in. So it's like it's fat up top, it goes in a little bit, and then it's fat down the bottom again. So let's do that in edit mode with our donut. But we need more geometry. Same problem as we did with the donut icing straight away. We've got the same problem here. So I'm going to apply my Subsurf Modifier over here, hit apply. Now I've got double the geometry, and I don't need to add another one because I don't really need it right now. And now I'm going to hit O, O again, turn that on. Disable snapping, because I no longer need that, or I don't need it for this step anyway. And then using my proportional fall off, because I do want that, I'm just going to make it like a little bit flat on the inside part here. Okay, cool. All right, now, this is now way off. Okay, so why did I do it in this order? Right, why, Andrew? Why didn't we start shaping it the way like that? Because now it would seem like we have to go through here, turn on this, and like snap it for each one of these parts, and that's just annoying. Well, you don't, okay? Because there is, and I did it in this order because I want to show you this. There's two ways to make something snap. The other one is the shrink wrap modifier. So the shrink wrap modifier, if I click this little target eyedropper here, the eyedropper, whenever you see that, it just means click it and then select on your viewport which object you want to target. If you hit that, it will now snap to the mesh. Now, what's happened? Why does it look like, I don't know, pretty cool pattern, but yeah. Why is it doing that? It's because of the order of your modifier. So if something doesn't look right, check the order of your modifiers. It's working top to bottom. So it's giving thickness first, and then later on it's shrink wrapping it to it. So obviously that's not right. Shrink wrapping goes first. Now that we've done that, you can see this is what it looked like before, this is what it looks like after. So shrink wrap modifier will try to find the shortest distance between each of these points and the mesh underneath it. And it just so happens to usually get it right. Just check the inside part, make sure.
Yeah, no, he was doing it a different way, but I was like, I've got a tablet open, so I'm just gonna do it. But now I missed the thing about the shrink wrapping,
That's
so
kind
I'm
of
trying to figure that out real
a little bit
quick.
behind. I was doing icing for a minute. Let's we haven't spoken enough in this
Yeah,
live stream.
let's we'll stumble through it for a little bit, and okay, so I'm gonna go. Icing is back, and just as you said, it's got some issues now. Do you think the shrink wrap goes on the donut or on the icing?
I think the shrink wrap goes in the icing because
Okay.
it's like wrapping to the donut, and I
Okay.
think also we have to like go in and make the donut more geometry.
Yeah, I did subdivide my donut.
I have not subdivided my donut yet. Alright, I gotta subdivide my donut and then put another subdivide on it so it looks smooth, and then
But I think your donut had a finer mesh to begin with.
it did. But I still think I should, make it more.
Yeah. Yeah, my icing's looking a little lumpy, but I'm just kind of going with it.
Right, okay, there we go. Now I got my little center point that kind of digs in. Is that how this is working, or does he have, seems like his is a little bit more. I like that. That looks good.
No, a little choppy. Okay, so you did donut, shrink wrap.
Well, I haven't done shrink wrap yet. Hold on.
Oh, okay, sorry. You just did
The thing, yeah.
you just subdivided.
Yeah. So then what I did now is shrink wrap, which should be on deform, I think? Yes.
Uh-huh.
And I'm targeting it to the donut. Okay. And it looks all wrong, but that's probably because it's not in the right order. Maybe it needs to be first. That looks right. Alright.
Oh, so you did the shrink wrap on the icing.
Yes.
Okay.
I guess since you're kind of wrapping the icing around.
Yeah.
Still doesn't seem like it's wrapping perfectly, but it's wrapping at least a little bit well.
Yeah, it's a little better. A little funky.
Maybe I can do the offset more? Nope. Jeff, I have created...
Oh, wow. Interdimensional donut.
Snap mode, above surface? No, that's not right. Nope. What is this set to? Nearest surface point, on surface donut. Yeah, okay, he just has the basic thing.
Yeah.
I guess my little icing bits just aren't. I'll have to do it by hand.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna have to go in and subdivide this icing again at some point, but I'm just gonna put it off for now.
So there's no problems there. But yeah, that's how you can do it. So now we've got something that looks a little bit more like the shape of a donut, right? Because the edges are, that the sides of it are not jutting out. They seem to be flat. And that's kind of cool. It's kind of what we want. I might actually make this bottom bit just a little bit fatter. So I'm going to hit Alt-S on this. Oop, just turn off this. Alt-S, just make this a little bit chunkier. Just add a little bit of interest to it. And then, yeah, just go through it and continue making making your icing droopy like you want. Now, this was one way to do this droopiness, and it's okay, but it doesn't look as good as it could, right? Because when this drip goes down here, you can see that it becomes more bulbous, right? As the liquid sort of forms that droplet there, and we are missing that. We are going to do that in the next step, the next part. We are going to jump into sculpting. So just basically create the basic sort of form that you want, but we're going to do more detail.
I think all the things that I'm doing wrong are because I got impatient and jumped the gun.
I think the same thing, basically. Like,
well.
Going into it the first time,
and
you're doing it, and you're making mistakes because you're new to it. Then the second time, you're just so impatient that you keep jumping ahead.
Yeah. I'm like, oh, I know how to do that. And he's like, no.
On about another tool of Blender, sculpting, in the next part. So go ahead, click here on the screen, and I will see you in the next part.
I think we have time to do sculpting.
I think we do. We've got 20 minutes.
Yeah. The Sopranos opening.
Yeah, but I'm sure they're doing it to like sell Bitcoin or something.
No, it's Chevrolet.
Oh, yeah.
See why professionals like Oscar Wojnski trust Polygon for their models and textures. Sign up for free at polygon.com to see the difference that high-quality assets can make to your renders. Welcome to part 5. We have, up until this point, just been working in edit mode, right? And manually coming in here with our points and sort of moving and manipulating them. But there is another method called sculpting, which can be beneficial in certain cases, and in some cases highly necessary, and allows you to use brush strokes to move your vertices around, and that's what I'll show you right now. So if we were to start sculpting here, it would just be terrible because we've got all these modifiers, right? We've got shrink wrap, solidify, subdivision, blah blah blah. When you start sculpting, you don't have any of that, okay? So what you need to do is apply what you want before you start sculpting. So we want all of these applied in this order. So you can go to the little drop down and hit apply, or you can use the hotkey Control A and Control A again. Okay, so when I do that, I've applied also that subdiv modifier, right? So it's given me double the amount of vertices, which is, again, what I would need, because if I go back to what it looked like before, that's not enough to really play with it. Because what we want to do is we want to create some of these little globules. Pretend that's a word, globules. Little droplets that sort of bulge out. So we need more vertices. So I'm going to hit Control A on that, and now we've got enough. So Sculpt Mode, let's do it. Go up to the top tab of your window there. So these are workspaces.
You applied all the modifiers?
Yeah, all these ones along
You
here.
did.
These are workspaces. And basic.
So you want to go in the order. So solidify, then shrink wrap, then solidify, then subdiv.
Subdivision. Okay, I got you. And then did he do it on the donut, or did he leave the donut alone?
He left the donut alone.
Okay, cool. So we're in sculpting now.
Yeah.
Basically, it's just like a pre-configured layout. So instead of having this, it's just like pre-configured to work this way. But you can also swap in and out of certain modes wherever you are without changing your mode, just by hitting Control Tab. I suppose I should turn that tool back on. Let's hit that. Yeah. Okay, awesome. So Sculpt Mode, if you just start drawing, just paint across it, you'll see that you've got some sculpting happening. And there are a number of different tools within sculpting. The draw one is the most basic. It's literally a sort of a push-pull based on where it is that you're looking from. It'll just basically push the surface out towards you. And then the opposite of that, if you hold down Control, that is sort of the reverse of a brush. So you can see that it's now digging into it. So a whole bunch of these you could use. I'd say the most common is it's probably grab, which you can use by just tapping G or hitting that one down there. And that enables you to click and pull out onto, just anywhere. Now the brush size of this is really small. So you can change the brush size up here. I don't know why, but my mouse is doing this weird thing where doesn't register my movement until like I start moving. It's very bizarre. Anyways, but you could do it there, but actually the hotkey, which is just a far easy way of doing it, is F. And then F, you just drag out until you've got the size that you want, basically, and then you just do a single click. And then Shift F will give you the strength. So you can see in the top, actually, as I move, you can see the strength value changing there as well. But I'll just leave that as the default, and you can see, yeah, now dragging makes a lot more sense. So, you know, what is the difference between like using grab here and then using it here? I mean, it's just like ease of use, like which one makes more sense depending on what it is that you're trying to do. So some people would find that working with grab in certain areas would be preferable, and then others might find, as I do sometimes, that you want to see the mesh. You want to actually be able to like control it and take vertices and move them on specific axes. Oh yeah, that thing's still kicking in. I'll turn that off. Yeah, so that might be useful, but in this case, you know, we want to do some sculpting. So, okay, so grab. What's another one that's really heavily used is smooth, and this will obviously smooth out detail. Now, you can also temporarily activate smooth anywhere, regardless of what tool you've got, just by holding down Shift. So if you just use Shift, you can see that it's just temporarily activated the smooth tool. So if you want it, because it's such a, I don't know why the default is set to 0.7, that seems way too high to me. But if you're using another tool and you start holding down Shift, you don't have the control to change the strength. The strength is still reflected over here. So if you want to, I would suggest turning that down to like a 0.2, and then when you use it, it's like now a lot more subtle when you use the smooth tool. Okay, now the other one that I'd say it's pretty heavily used, even for sculpting characters and things, is inflate, and that is the one that we really want to use here for these globules. So if I just click in one place and I don't move my mouse, it doesn't build upon it unless you've got airbrush as a setting turned on. So you can see if you hit N, you're on your properties, and then go to tool, this is showing your active tool. It's also here, by the way. So these are your properties, right, for your scene and everything else. But this one at the top there is active tool. So what is the difference between this and this? Nothing. It's completely the same. It was just a habit that I went to properties. But yeah, it's over here now. So if you turn on, let me just find it actually. There it is, airbrush. So if you, basically that enables you to, you don't have to like move your mouse. You could just click on it and leave it wherever it is that you want, and then it will just build upon that area basically. So I can click there, I can click here, like such. I don't know. What was that video of the Miss America and such as things and such? I don't know. Poor girl. You don't want to become a meme for something like that. So airbrush is working, it works fine over here, but it's not working so great over there. So I'm going to switch it back to space, which basically means it'll activate when you draw out further enough that it thinks there should be another dot there, basically. But anyways, I'm basically looking at my reference photo again, which I can bring back by dragging this out and then going to airbrush is working, it works fine over here, but it's
I'm just, this is an emotional donut. I'm going based on feeling.
Not working so great over there. So I'm going to switch it back to space, which basically means it'll activate when you draw.
What is that? What is he doing?
Miss America and such as things and such. Poor girl. You don't want to become a meme for something like that. So airbrush is working, it works fine over here, but it's not working so great over there. So I'm going to switch it back to space, which basically means it'll activate when you draw out.
How do you get his brush settings in the...
You basically go up to the active tool. So if it's on the properties bar, this like long side thing. Can you see my screen on the screen?
Oh yeah.
It's like the top option with like a screwdriver and a wrench. That's the active tool, and then you can change your stroke settings. So go to the stroke on that list, and then there should be a type is like should be set to space, and then you change it from space to airbrush. Should be like a drop down at the very top.
Gotcha, because it seems like he just did something where it's adding nodes when it needs it.
Adding nodes?
Or vertices?
No, I think that's just...
Yeah, maybe I just misunderstood.
Yeah, no, I think it's just actually inflating it. It's just...
Word. Okay.
Out further enough that it thinks there should be another dot there, basically. But anyways, I'm basically looking at my reference photo again, which I can bring back by dragging this out and then go into image editor, and from the drop down just click on this. I can see that, yeah, basically on the areas, not just on like these globule bits, but here as well, like up here you can see that it's like a thin film of that icing, but down there, that's where it all rolls off to. So really on the outer edge there, I want to do some painting. So I'm just clicking along that edge there with the inflate brush. If you find that it's too much, you can use Shift F to turn it down and get more subtle movements, or turn it up. And obviously, this will work a lot better if you have a stylus. So a stylus has the one big advantage. I mean, not just because it's, you can flick your wrist. That's not really the big advantage of styluses. It's more so because you've got pen pressure. So you can subtly do like dit, 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 and then and taper it and do different pen pressures. It's like even like really basic styluses will have like 2,000 levels of pen pressure that it'll detect as your fingers like pushing on it or whatnot. Whereas your mouse has one. It's a binary on and off thing. So I'm using mouse right now because I know that most of you watching are also using a mouse. So I want to show you that it is possible. But I also want to say, I recommend getting a stylus if you can afford it. And especially if you want to get into characters, or, don't rush out and invest in something before you're absolutely sure that you enjoy Blender and that this is something you want to do. But at some point you'll probably realize as you get into 3D more that, a stylus is probably a worthwhile investment. So you can pick them up cheap, man, really cheap. Just look on like Facebook Marketplace, just type in Wacom, WACOM. That's sort of like the leading brand. But there's a bunch of like cheaper brands nowadays that you could go to as well. Anyways, another one I'm going to do is just across here, because we got the Sculpt Brush out. Why not just add a little bit of variance? Oh, the strength is too high. I'll turn that down. A little bit of variance to our top, our icing here. Why not? So I'm just doing a few little dabs, a dab here, a dab there, just to give a little bit of a wavy surface. Why not? And then also down here, although it's not really going to be seen that much, I'll just make sure that there's a little bit of variance here, right? It's usually where it's like, it's all sort of mushed together in the center anyway. Would there be like a little bit of the dough sticking out underneath? I don't know. Donut shops are popular, man. Like, I don't know if that's like a revelation to anyone else, but like, I don't know. I try to eat healthy and like avoid sugary things, right? And so I just, for my whole life, I've just been ignoring like donut shops. But then I went there to take a like reference photo, or that video that I showed you. And I was like, wow, there's a queue. And it wasn't like a artisanal donut shop or anything. This was just like your regular Donut King, just in the shopping center. I was like, wow. So there are people that are just like, got to go do my groceries. Buy a donut. Not judging. Okay. Well, I mean, look. Okay, everybody judges, but it's one of those things where it's like you think the rest of the world is happy.
He's famous for his donuts. He doesn't even eat donuts.
Yeah, no, he models the donuts. He doesn't eat the donuts.
What a ripoff.
Yeah.
My trust. The immersion is broken for me.
I will say that even though he does not eat them, he makes them look damn good.
He does make them look good. He gets what's good about them, which is,
View it, right? But it's not. Everyone's got their own snacks. Some people would say that me eating nuts is a poor idea of a snack. Maybe it is. All right. Looking at my donut here, let's do some more. Yeah, might as well. We got the Sculpt Brush out. So select your donut. If you can't do that, you have to Control Tab. This is how I'm doing this, or you can go up here. You have to swap to Object Mode, remember, before you can switch to another object to start sculpting that. So when you've got the other object selected, then Alt-Tab and do some sculpting over here as well. So I'll do a little bit of inflation. Not hyperinflate. No.
Doughnut itself now?
Only the
Yeah.
U.S. government can do that.
Giving us some lumps.
I don't know anything about politics or economics. I just see stuff on the news. Hyperinflation. I'm like, ooh, doesn't sound good. All right, just a few. Maybe I need a little bit more strength. Wow, I don't know. Is this my blender or is this mouse? My mouse that's doing that. I don't know. It's very bizarre. All right. Or maybe I just need to reformat my computer. It's been a while. Okay. How's it looking? Pretty good. I'll swap back. I'll do a little bit here, a dab here, a dab there. You get the idea, right? I don't need to show you everything. Play around with it. Grab brush, G, inflate brush, I, and smooth brush. You just hold down shift wherever you want. Don't do it too much. That's kind of a common mistake. People smooth out things when they're sculpting, and you just smooth out all the detail. It's not good. You want to do just a little bit here and there. Okay, and I'll pull that up there. All right, so you can see the differences, right, that sculpting has. It's more of a fluid, organic motion that you can sort of, it's more creative than the edit mode where you're coming in here with the vertices, but there are pros and cons of each. Sculpt mode, you can't do that snap to faces thing, right? Especially when you've got, a surface like this, right? That's got volume now because we've applied the solidify thing. You can't do that snap thing. So because we want it wrapping around our donut, it's good that we did it in this order. Otherwise we would be out of luck. It's also a little bit harder to do like this part, right? Like it's like this part needs to go out, this part needs to go in. It's just, there are certain things that you'll be like, it's just going to be easier if I just swap into edit mode, and I'll do it there. And then I'll swap back to sculpt mode when I want to do something there. You just sort of get better at it. Anyways, I'm going to jump back to layout mode now, which is, I guess sort of, maybe it's more of like the default view, but layout is the one that you normally stay on. That's where at least that's where I stay rooted. And then because we've got like some of this like little jagged edges coming in, I'm going to add in another Subsurf modifier. If you've got a poor computer and you find that like it's like rendering becomes complex later, or it's hard to move around your viewport, you might not want to. You might want to just like delete that perhaps. But on my case, I would just want to make that look nice and smooth. So that's why I've left that in. All right. Well, that is sculpting. That's good. We made some good time. Go ahead and join me in the next video as we get into materials, lighting, and rendering.
If you want to sell online, make sure you stand out.
Yeah.
Go to Wix e-commerce and create a professional.
So Heath, the last thing he did is he went and did another subsurf on the icing.
Yep, just to make sure it was nice and rounded out. So here we are, everybody, at the end of our stream, and we got ourselves some donuts. Jeff, how do you feel about your donut?
I feel pretty good. I feel like it's coming along. I
like
got
my
some
donut.
nice texture. Yeah, you really went for a very textured.
Oh yeah, sort of the cruller.
The cruller, yeah.
I think it worked out well. I like yours though. It's got a lot. The icing is very nice.
It's very goopy icing.
It is very goopy. Are you in material? I should probably do that.
I'm just in
Yeah, you're in material.
yeah, material or viewport shading, whatever.
Makes it look all pretty. Well, we might do a part 2 of this where we go through the rest of the pipeline.
Yeah, I want to finish up the.
The donuts.
Funny how he gets punchier in these later videos, but he's still instructing really well.
Yeah.
Yeah, he definitely is less humble, I think. Now he's got a huge, massive YouTube following, and he could kind of cut it loose a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah. When is the Krispy Kreme challenge?
I actually do not know.
We could find out real quick.
I've never done it before. I might do it this year after this thing, though. I don't know. I don't know when to put my body through that.
Yeah. Krispy.
While Jeff is looking that up, just a reminder that you can, through Tech Lending, get these drawing tablets that we were using there at the end with the sculpting. You can rent those out for, I think, up to 8 hours at the very least, and then a little bit longer than that, depending on the item. So yeah, definitely a great tool to use, experiment with, play around with, and get used to. And then if you like it, you can invest in one yourself. They're not that expensive. This one's actually not the library's, it's mine. It was about $100, and it's Bluetooth, so I don't have to have it wired. It's charging, which is I have it wired right now. But yeah.
Yeah, this says it was on February 5th, so.
Oh wow, okay.
We missed it.
We missed it, but we're still doing it in spirit.
Oh, it's virtual across February this year, according to Technobotanist.
Interesting.
So
you can
we've
do the
got
Krispy Kreme challenge whenever you want to.
Yeah. I've actually been off of the gluten for a while.
Been off the gluten.
So I feel like I would do the Krispy Kreme challenge, but I wouldn't eat the donuts, and so I would feel like everybody else would be like, well, what the hell, dude?
Yeah.
We're out here struggling. I'd run the 5K though.
Yeah.
Maybe I could find some other like
gluten-free donuts. Maybe they have gluten-free donuts.
Yeah, or I'll like drop them off ahead of time.
Yeah.
It'll be like, just give me these.
Yeah. For Jeff.
Yeah. Cool. Well, I'm gonna
change.
save this. I'm gonna finish this donut.
Yeah, let's save. Make sure we can come back later.
All right. Thanks for tuning in again, everybody.
Yeah, and don't
And
forget to
next
check-
time, maybe we'll finish our donuts.
Don't forget to check out the VR studio as well in DHL.
Yeah.
We're both from there. If you have any questions about Blender, many other employees at the studio, including us, are well versed in it. So hop on over and check out some VR and some other cool stuff.
From what, 10 to 8?
Yep, 10 to 8, or 8 to 10. Yeah, 10 to 8.
10 to 8. Yeah. Okay. Thanks, everybody.